Hi there, boys and girls. I hope you're doing well. Back again for another math lesson. Today, our focus is on telling and writing time to the hour. So, yesterday we talked all about how to read a clock. And today we're going to see two different types of clocks and how to read them. So, let's get started. Our words to know, remember to repeat.
Clock. Luke eats breakfast at 7 o'clock.
All right.
Are there things that you do at certain times?
I'm sure that there are plenty of things that you do at certain times, like when you get up in the morning, when you brush your teeth, when you have breakfast, when you have lunch, when you have dinner, if you do any sports. Those are all things that you need to do at a certain time.
Yes. The clock shows 7 o'clock.
This is what we saw yesterday, where we were given a clock that looks like this, and we talked about the two hands that are on the clock. The short hand, just as a reminder, is the hour hand and points to what hour it is. And the long hand, the red one here, is going to be our minute hand, and it tells us what minute it is within the hour.
How do you know that the clock shows 7 o'clock?
If you remember what we learned yesterday, you need to look at the hour hand and see what number it's pointing to. So it's pointing to the 7. And if you remember from yesterday, anytime our minute hand is pointing to that number 12, we say that it is o'clock. That's how we know that this clock reads 7 o'clock.
The hour hand points to 7, and the minute hand points to 12. This clock shows 7 o'clock another way.
So what you are looking at now is a new way to read a clock. It's just written in a different way. You see this clock more often, whether that's on your computer, your iPad, or your parent's cell phone. You see a clock being read like this more often.
What looks different about this kind of clock? Think about it.
All right, so this clock definitely does not look the same as the clock we looked at yesterday. The biggest thing being that I don't see any hands to know what time it is. It reads the clock in a different way. This is called a digital clock.
One difference is that this kind of clock has no hands. What does the number before the two dots tell?
Well, if you remember what the video said earlier, it said that this clock read 7 o'clock. So what does the number before the two dots that you see over here, if you're looking at my mouse, what do you think this number is going to represent? The hour or the minutes? Well, if it's reading 7 o'clock and you're making connections to what we learned yesterday, the 7 is going to represent the hour.
It tells the hour. What do the numbers after the two dots tell?
Well, now you see some more numbers that are after these two dots. Now, these two numbers read 00, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The video will explain what that means. But again, the clock reads 7 o'clock. If the 7 represents the hour, then the 00 must represent the minute.
They tell the minutes. Yes, 7 tells the hour, and 00 tells the minutes. When do you say o'clock for the clock on the left?
So now this should look familiar because this is what we talked about yesterday, where we looked at a clock that looked like this. And you can read it by finding the hour, seeing where it's pointing to, and then looking at the minute hand and seeing what it's pointing to. Now we said when the minute hand is pointing to the 12, we say o'clock. That's why it's read 7 o'clock.
You say o'clock when the minute hand points to the 12. When do you say o'clock for the clock on the right?
That's something new. You
say o'clock when you see 00 after the dots.
So just like we do when reading a clock like this on the left, anytime our big red minute hand is pointing to the 12, we will always say o'clock. Now you know if you see a clock written digitally, when you see 00, after those two dots, we will also say o'clock.
Compare the two clocks. Do they show the same time?
Well, looking at the big clock that we have here on the left that I'm circling here with my mouse, we said the hour was pointing to 7, the minute hand was pointing to 12, so we would say and read this time as 7 o'clock. Now this one, even though it looks different and it is in digital form, the hour is still 7, and we just learned that 00 will mean that it is o'clock. So this also shows 7 o'clock. So both of these clocks show the same time.
Yes, both clocks show the same time. You write 7 o'clock and say 7 o'clock.
These are just two different ways that you can say and write the time. You can write it digitally by writing the 7 and then the two dots and 00, or you can write out 7 o'clock. Either way, it says the same thing.
Now you know how to tell the time to the hour on two kinds of clocks. You also know how to write the time to the hour.
That is our lesson for today. After watching this video, as always, you are going to complete your RMP page in your packet. See you next time.